from beautiful East Tennessee in the foothills of the Smoky Mountains. You are listening to the Sherry Voluntary Show, and I certainly appreciate you spending your time with me. Today, my guest is someone that you're probably already familiar with. He is the host of a great podcast called the Disenthrall podcast, which I happen to love. And he also, I think you first came across my radar when you ran for not governor. Yep. So Mr. Patrick Smith, and we're going to talk about a little event you have going on today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I knew it was going to happen sooner or later, so I'm glad that it's now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I used to love watching your not governor. Like, yeah, there were a couple, I think, that were debates, and some just you talking, the videos, and they were great. And I was like, I got to follow this guy. So I've been following you since. It was such a
blast, like being the principled guy on stage.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to do that every 4 years for the rest of my life. Just the most fun I've ever had.
It's really nice to open, like, to hold these politicians, really accountable for their moral stances, their immoral stances, and for people to see that there's somebody willing to step up and be ridiculed, because I'm sure you get a lot of that because of those kind of things.
Yeah,
I mean, people are not nice. Just saying, you disagree with cops being able to kill people and go free, murder people, and they lose their stuff. So
especially the Libertarian Party in Texas, it is very quasi Tea Party Republican. So there are some messages that are part of the libertarian principle that they don't like.
Yeah, that's, I think, very similar to East Tennessee as well. It's Republican country here, and it's really tough to talk to people because they're so defensive about anything you say as a criticism that you just hate people, and they just don't get that you can criticize something, which I don't really support the police anyways, but you can criticize something without being like they should die or whatever. So They don't even want to hear the solutions that you might have, that it can be done in a different way that would be not violating the rights of people. But I found I'm often more hard on the right than the left, because I think the right, at least for me, and I have more exposure to them here, but that they walk around and they talk, they use the rhetoric of freedom, but they don't really believe in freedom. So to me, that's more dangerous than people who will actually tell you, well, I think the Constitution's crap. Like, I'm the same way, but the Republicans won't tell you that. They'll say they believe in those things, and then they'll go back on what they say they believe.
It's the exact same problem that I have with libertarians. They go around, and I find that like a far more egregious crime. Like,
yeah, that's
it's
true.
fine to say that you're, repping the Constitution magic paper scribbles,
right,
and then go off the rails and do something evil. But when you rep libertarian principle, the libertarian principle of non-aggression and, live and let live, and then you go off the rails and back borders or back the blue,
right,
that's
the
really gets to me.
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely.
I have the same issues. That's, really the reason I left the Libertarian Party. I was only involved for like a year and a half, and I never wanted to get involved in party politics, really. And then I did, and I learned my lesson. And I really did learn my lesson, because I thought the Libertarian Party wanted to change the system completely, like libertarianism would. But what I really found was that most of the people, not all, but a majority of the people, I think, want a seat at the table. They don't want to knock the table over. So they just want to interact in that power game. And whether you're calling yourselves a libertarian or whatever, if you're going to force people to do things, then we have a problem. So it just wasn't the place for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's what's that? It's called Stoicism. It's one of the kind of tenets of Stoicism, and I'm not like a Stoic, but one of the things that I think they get right is you have to understand and accept the reality of a given situation, so that you're not surprised or disappointed or injured in some way by when it plays out like it's going to play out. And so, if the concept of the Libertarian Party is to position itself to sort of suck in the rest of the world's statists and sort of make them more liberty-minded, then necessarily it's going to be full of a bunch of statists that have been attracted to the ideas of liberty. And it's those statists that keep it from being the Libertarian Party. So it's kind of self-defeating. And so as part of my understanding of the reality of the situation, I understand that it's not a valid means of achieving freedom or an effective means of achieving freedom. I simply participate to be the principled yardstick for everybody to measure themselves against you. Because when you join the LP, you supposedly start repping the libertarian principle.
Right.
And so somebody needs to be like, well, that's principled, that's not.
Yeah, that was exactly my reason for getting involved. Was I thought, well, these people, they're calling themselves libertarians already, so it should be, we should be able to talk and, maybe I can help them come all the way to libertarianism, because I had people help me. Like I thought I was a libertarian for a long time before I was, even though I wasn't involved in the party. And then people helped me along the way to understand, oh, this is, get rid of those inconsistencies. But there was so much pushback sometimes that I just got a little overwhelmed and frustrated, but we'll see. Maybe I'll give it another go around. I don't know.
Well,
I still love my
I was
friends.
resoundingly declared far too libertarian for the Libertarian Party in Texas. And, and I think I've been banned from their Facebook group now.
Wow. That's exciting.
Yep.
Well, that's not really what we came to talk about, but that's great. I think that's a good conversation that people should have, because what's the point of calling yourselves libertarians if you're going to just be Democrat or Republican light? Like, we definitely don't need more of that. So, but on to the...
You're going to lose.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I always say. Why would anyone who's a Democrat or a Republican come to support libertarians if they can get that from the Democrats and Republicans? Like, you're never going to get a majority of people to support you anyways that way. So why waste your time trying to be more like them? Let's be a real alternative. So anyways, what we wanted to talk about, what I wanted to talk to you about is this, a group that you're a part of called Don't Comply, correct? I don't know if they have members, or would you consider yourself a member of the group? I don't
think they're members.
Okay.
I do things with the guys that run it, I guess. I don't know.
All right. Well, you guys are having a Sons of Freedom March, and with the yellow vests, which I think is really interesting too. And it's going to be in Dallas on the 28th. And you're going to march across a bridge there with a guillotine, hopefully, and bring it to the front of, is it City Hall? There's a building, you guys, Frank Crowley Courthouse. So tell us a little about this and the thinking behind it.
So when the French started their latest riot session, let's say, I think most people were like, oh, yeah, it's the French doing their thing again. And then something happened. The government responded by at least putting off the tax hikes that supposedly sparked the riots.
Right.
And so for the first time in a long time, we have an example of a lot of people, number one, recognizing that they could resist a government edict, which I think more people around here and around these parts need to understand.
Yeah.
And two, we have an example of, now granted, I think it's a terribly executed thing that they did with a lot of collateral damage. And I got to say that, I disapprove of all the property damage and all the risk to innocent life that has occurred. I don't think they should have done that by any means. But we have an example of a small modicum of liberty resulting from that. Mm-hmm. And so that's a powerful message that I think we would like to amplify, that there comes a time when people need to remember that they are in charge of their own volition and agency, and they get to decide who rules their life. And if the people currently ruling their life are doing so in a way that crosses a line for them, they need to remember that they need to put a stop to it.
Yeah.
And so that is something that we can take from the French. Maybe that's all we can take from the French and what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
And that's why it's, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just was going to say that Alan and I covered this on my other show, Postcards from Somalia. And what we found, like, I really...
Which is the best name ever.
Thank
you. Say.
I love the name of your podcast too. But yeah, we were watching, and looking at all the information and looked at the things that they wanted from the government, their list of demands, and most of it was more government. So while I applauded their spirit, it's the wrong message. But when I saw you guys were doing it, I thought, now I'm sure they have a different message. They're not calling for more government, but I'm sure that's the case. Pretty sure, right?
Yeah. We would probably say, in the Texas, the saying is, "Aren't they precious?"
Yeah.
It's like they're basically effectively full on commies and socialists over there in France, but they're rioting over a little bit extra of a gas tax, not to get rid of the gas tax, not to set anybody free or end these socialist programs, but just to back off in one area and actually increase in other areas.
Yeah.
I'm doing a show soon where I'm going to actually go bullet point by bullet point through what they actually want. And it is in no way compatible with freedom. What's happening over there should not be considered freedom movement. I think that's the danger for what we're trying to do in a week. We definitely don't want to be associated with that mess, much less all the violent idiots over there doing bad things and damaging property.
Right.
And so I think that's why the label is, Sons of Freedom. Sons being an abbreviation for self-ownership, non-aggression principle abiding people, which, for those that are curious enough to find out what that means, it's pretty much 180 degrees from what's going on in France.
Yeah. I saw many people. I'm sorry, go ahead. No, I saw many people calling for, this is particularly one interview where they were talking with someone who was a part of the protests, and he was saying that, they've deregulated the taxes on some of the elites. This is what he's not a English native speaker, but what they were saying was they wanted the wealthy, what they considered the wealthy, to pay more taxes and them to pay less, because this is a tax on the poor. And I thought, you don't realize that every tax is a tax on the poor. Like the wealthy, it doesn't affect them like it affects everyone else. And we're all poor compared to the wealthiest people. So, maybe it'll help them to come the rest of the way. Maybe if there are libertarian-minded people there, anarchist-minded people, that they will have more of a voice to talk to these people, to kind of take some of the concepts that they're already working with and kind of help them come along, I hope. But, I don't know. France it's been a interesting place for a long time, and their idea of the kind of socialism that they have is very entrenched. So I don't know. I hope good things for them. I hope this brings about good things, but I'm not sure. But what do you guys?
I doubt it will.
Yeah. It's always hard to move like the majority of people. That's why you have to have cultural change, right? So we can get people to start thinking and come up to those conclusions on their own, basically, but spur them to do it. So I guess your thoughts on that.
Uh-oh. Okay. So, I mean, the whole idea for this event came out of a conversation where, we have private groups where we send funny memes back and forth. And one of the memes that appeared in this group was, I guess it came out of France, or maybe it was a picture of a guillotine, that they had dragged out there. And it said something along the line. It was something like, we could vote to beg for freedom, or, option B. And this guillotine was like a black and white picture. It was an intense symbol. That is just about as intense as you can get. Thinking back to what the French did with those guillotines the last time they wheeled them out to deal with politicians. Yeah. Wow, that's a powerful message. That's a big deal. Now, granted, now the problem, we have to keep making caveats for this event, because again, they're not doing it the right way. They're not. Maybe we can use some of that symbology to get a little attention of the public that we can then use to, remind them, hey, you have the power. You own yourself.
Yeah. So you guys are actually going to attempt to build a guillotine, correct? At your place, you're going to do that?
Starting tomorrow. And it will be hilarious when I receive the letter from my HOA saying, please, sir, do not build guillotines.
They're going to pass a law in their HOA that there shall be no guillotines produced in the driveway. Yeah.
Oh God, I hope they do.
That'd be
No,
a
there
great
will be
meme.
no guillotine building in the HOA.
Right. So what do you expect any kind of pushback from that? Are you guys? I know also one of the things that I really admire about what you guys have been doing with the Feed the Need event that you just recently had, which was your 6th annual one in
Yep.
Dallas, and with this is that you're armed. You're expressing your right to bear arms, and I think that's brilliant and wonderful. But even a lot of people who are not anti-gun are afraid of those kinds of things. They get worried when they see a group of protesters armed. So, do you expect any kind of pushback or?
Well, I can speak to Feed the Need and what happened there, because when we first showed up, we rolled up with all the guns and people started lining up to get their stuff, and they didn't even see the guns. They didn't even notice them at first until, a couple people walked by and like, oh my God, I heard this. They all have guns. And then some of the lady was like, why y'all need guns? Why are you scared? We're not scary. You don't have to be scared of us. And I just said, the guns aren't for you. The guns are for the people that are going to try and stop us from feeding you today.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, who's going to try and stop you from feeding us today? Oh, well, the police.
Yeah.
What? And then it was just like it was a mind-blowing conversation for both sides. Like we both interacted. We had like a 5-minute conversation where they had no idea. And we were like, look, these guns we're not scared of y'all. We're scared of the people with, bigger guns that are going to try and stop us from helping you. And then then instantly every single one of them was like, wow, thank you.
Wow,
thank you.
that's awesome.
How powerful is that? That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's what the Second Amendment, if we're going to talk about the magic the Constitution paper, that's what it's for, and so that event lets us show people what it's for.
Yeah.
This event, we're not going to be breaking any laws. I checked. Chapter 30 of the Texas, or Section 30 of the Texas Code or whatever, says nothing about guillotines. So, I imagine the reaction of most people. Like last night, we had our meetup. We have a meetup in Dallas, second largest in the world of voluntarists. I hope you're able to come down and visit sometime.
I would love to.
And we had some new people show up, and somebody mentioned building a guillotine this weekend, and they were like, "What?" And this is much more like normie person. So this is kind of what you would expect from the average person. So this was This was informing for me as to what this event's going to do to people. That's, entirely extreme. How do you think that's going to help anybody? Like, what's that going to do? What are you actually building a guillotine for? And I think that's going to be the reaction that we're going to get from most people. So the challenge will be spinning that messaging into, this is just a reminder to those that need to be reminded that you guys are in charge, not them.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think it's wonderful. And I think what a lot of people may not know is that, like with your event, the Feed the Need, where they were, concerned about the guns at first, and then you explained it to them, is that every other group that's tried to do that in Dallas has gotten shut down by the police, correct? That has tried to feed and help the homeless there without the proper authority to do so.
So I believe... I haven't verified this all the way yet, but I've definitely heard that an entire church group was arrested in Houston, Texas for feeding the homeless. And I think it went all the way to the Supreme Court, which caused some rules to be changed, but only slightly. Like, I think, you're allowed to feed a couple people before you need to beg permission from your masters. And then, they're like in Florida, they poured bleach on people's food that they were trying to give to the homeless. In last year's Feed the Need video, Feed the Need 5, you can search YouTube for that. I interviewed almost every single person there, and I asked them basic questions like, what are we doing here? We're breaking the law. You know that, right? What would you do if they tried to arrest you? And on camera, people's answers are vastly different than they are off camera. We can just say that up front. Most people on camera are like, oh, well, I would be arrested for this. And then off camera, they're like, wink, like the whole purpose of open carrying, the whole purpose of these weapons is to break bad laws and not be arrested for it.
Yeah.
And that was the opinion of most of the people at this event as well. And as the story in Florida where they poured bleach on people's food broke pretty recently.
But Yeah, I think what you guys are doing is really important. And for like, I know that the Don't Comply guys and your voluntarist meetup has really inspired me, and I'm trying to get something like that started in my area. Just a meetup for voluntarists, and the voluncurious is what what I'm going to call it. So I think that anytime other people step up, it inspires people who are at that point where they're willing to step up too. And it's really important for us as voluntarists because we are such a small portion. Like we don't even make a blip, I'm sure, in like a census or something. We would be less than 1%. But that's how we're going to get more people is when we're willing to stand up and be loud and proud, as if you will, about who we are. And it's only been within the past year and a half that I was more comfortable about saying I'm an anarchist or I'm a voluntarist and letting the chips fall where they may with people, because at first I was really worried about it, to be honest, because I do live in a place that's highly authoritarian, and I homeschool my kids, and with the homeschool groups, there's a lot of really religious people who are very authoritarian and statists. And so I thought, what if
are you living right now?
I'm sorry?
Where are you living right now?
I live in East Tennessee, in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah.
I used to pass through Tennessee often. Okay,
Yeah.
I might have to visit.
I love it here. You know, it's a great place. I grew up in Chattanooga, so I'm really familiar here. We moved to Knoxville. But I was worried that, I was thinking, what if people are mean to my kids about it? Like, that was the really scary thing. I can take it, but what if they're mean to my kids? And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, I'm raising kids to think. I'm raising kids that I want them to have dangerous minds. I want them to be principled, and I want them to stand for things. And so if I want them to do that, they're going to have to see me do that. They're going to have to see how I, lead them by example. So I thought, my kids are pretty strong. I'm sure they can take on some stuff. So it's been great. We haven't had a bad experience, really. Even my daughter, who this year she's going to a co-op 2 days a week, and they say the pledge at her little co-op, and she didn't say it. And some of the other second graders were saying to her, "You should say it if you know it, and it's not right not to put your hand on your heart." And so I talked with her and I said, "What do you want to do about it? They might be angry with you if you keep not doing it. What do you want to do? You can do it if you don't want to have the hassle." And she said, "No, Mama, I don't believe in that, and I don't want to do it." So we talked to her teacher, and the teacher, I know, I was so proud of her. And the teacher said, "Oh, well, that's not right." And as we talked about it a little bit, she said, "The pledge is sort of kind of Nazi-ish is what her word was, isn't it?"
The teacher said that?
The teacher said that, who's the sweet woman. Like, she's the super soft-spoken, sweet lady. And she says, "I have them do it because I think it's good for them, But that realization came to her. So I thought, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And so I think that's the kind of thing we have to always remember, that we have to be even more principled, be more, be more outspoken about our principles, because there's nobody out there giving that message if we don't do it. Nobody.
And a powerful but not too impolite way of saying this stuff sometimes, rather than saying, well, I think doing that is wrong and evil, and, you shouldn't do that. Right. Oftentimes I'll just say something like, I would never try and stop somebody on the side of the road because I thought they were going a little too fast. That's absurd. I'm not going to do that to somebody. What right do I have? That kind of thing works really well. Speaking to the voluntarist meetup, though, I've been doing all this activism for years now. My YouTube channel, the blog, the Disenthrall channel, running for not governor, all this stuff. And I think, honestly, the most successful form of activism that I have done yet to date was creating the meetup group. The group of people that you come home, it feels like, to your tribe every Thursday evening for a few hours. And you're surrounded by people. None of them want to attack you. None of them believe in the sky cloth, the magic sky cloth.
Right.
And once you've experienced that, I'm sure people that have gone to an Acapulco feel and experience that exact thing, but it only lasts a week. Well, what we have here it feels just like normal life now. And that is so powerful to have a group. We call and we hang out and we do stuff other nights. And then we also meet up on Thursdays, and it grows this community over time. And I think most people probably come to volunteerism by watching crap loads of YouTube videos and reading tons and tons of books that, are very dry, not through actually talking to somebody else. I think most people are still on the internet to get there.
Yeah.
And you can start to feel isolated. You can start to feel all alone, and you can start to kind of feel crazy because no one else that you're talking to in your day-to-day life, they're all telling you you're crazy.
Yeah.
And so when you can walk into a room with 20, 30, 40 people and be like, taxation is theft, and they're like, yeah, we know, man.
Right.
When it's not even like a thing, it's just like, yeah, we got that.
Yeah.
That was 50 years ago.
Right.
I can't even describe what it feels like. And so I want to help people recreate what we've done here in Dallas where they live. I want everyone to have a community, have a tribe, so to speak. And so I think that's what I'm going to be talking about at an Acapulco this year. And then I'll probably make some videos on that as well. But
that's awesome.
Yes, because I think that this might be the most important form of activism that you could do right now because people are red pilling themselves and learning how to talk to people and red pill them. I hate that term, but wake people up, let's say. Like those are all skills that you need to have, and that's certainly important forms of activism. But once you've created these woke people, they have to have a place to go.
Yeah.
Same thing for Libertarian Party activism. I'm in there talking principles all day, and they're like, well, if this isn't the way to do it, where do we go? Oh, hey, come hang out with us every Thursday, and we'll talk to you about that.
Yeah.
You have to have a place for people to go.
Yeah. Community, that's one of the things I think, that socialism is a bad thing, but having social groups and communities is a human need. We need those kinds of, and they are social in their very nature, just like families are more socialist, if you will, but not compulsory socialism. So there's a difference. And I think sometimes people can forget that everyone needs a community, and that's really, really where you get a lot of your needs met. That's anarchy. If we ever have any kind of anarchist society, it's going to require communities of people helping, and governing themselves and helping each other and doing a lot like people used to live. In my little place I grew up, that was the norm where people, if you were sick, people would go and bring you food and check on you. And if someone lost their job, other families would pitch in and help them because, we want that coming back if we're ever in that situation. So I think those are things people have just forgotten that neighbors used to do for each other. And so those kinds of communities are so important. And I think that's really what you've got going there is a beautiful community of people who get you. And that's, I just, even my internet friends who are voluntarists, sometimes it's just so nice to be in a group of just them because you don't have to explain yourself constantly. And I know we all get tired of doing that. So,
yeah.
But just to wrap things up, it's been a really great conversation. I knew I would love talking with you. It's been good to talk to you face to face. Tell us a little, I know you're speaking at Acapulco, which I think is fantastic. And I so want to make it down there one day. But tell us a little about that, when that's happening, and then about your podcast, where people can find your work.
So I cross-post my content everywhere. Facebook, it's facebook.com/disenthrall me. YouTube is youtube.com/disenthrall. That's DISENTHRALL. It's probably a terrible name.
I love it. I think it's great.
Spell it. But and the logo looks really creepy and Illuminati-esque. But yeah, so that's where we and it's a platform. It's not just me. We have other people that post their content, and if you ever have anything that you'd like to contribute, you're more than welcome to be a contributor.
Thank you.
And Acapulco, yes, I'll be on the advocacy stage this year in February. This will be my first time at an Acapulco and my first time speaking to anarchists. That's kind of mind blowing for me too. Like I'm used to speaking to audiences of libertarians and normies, and so I've had to stop and really think, like, about peaceful parenting. They already know about not spanking and not circumcising, and they already know the government's evil.
Right.
So what do I talk to these people about?
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be the community building. That's probably the biggest thing I can add.
Very cool. Well, I know I encourage everyone to watch your podcast because I love it. I think it's great. And you have a great way of communicating ideas to people. So I think that's wonderful. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this today. Now, this is going to be December 28th in Dallas, Texas. And if you're in the area or going to be in the area, who should they contact? I guess there's a Facebook invitation or event that you can
definitely get on that Facebook event. It's Sons of Freedom, and Sons is S.O.N. You can put a link to it, but
I'll link it.
Step one is please, go to that event page and, post that you're going there because this event is such a short notice thing that we really need to make sure that people are going and tell other people that they're going because, to ask people to get out of the house in between Christmas and New Year's is a difficult thing. So definitely go to the event page for us.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Patrick. And I hope to talk to you again sometime on the show. And I'm sure we'll talk in Facebook and all those things. So
anytime. Just let me know.
Yeah. Take care. Thank you.
You too. Thanks.